All right. I think we're going.
You see me okay? I can't really see myself. How's the shot?
You are not centered.
All right, let me see if I can do this. There we go. I can see myself now.
Oh, that helped.
Okay. How's that?
That is grand.
All right. Most importantly, how's this?
Hey guys, this is Nathan with Crown and Caliber, coming to you from my sunroom here in my house where I've been for the past 2.5 weeks. And we decided we wanted to introduce you to some of the people that we work with. And so who I have on the line here is Mike Senderovich, and he's gonna introduce himself, tell you a little bit about what he's done and also what he does with us. He is one of the co-hosts of the Watch and Listen podcast, but I'll shut up for a minute and let Mike introduce himself, man. So take it away for a minute.
You've done a pretty damn good job, I'll tell you that. Yeah, I am a new co-host of Watch and Listen. My past involves quite a lot of podcasting. So I was the creator and co-host of another watch podcast called On Time, and we did really well for a period of time. And we just decided that we said everything that we had to say, and we decided to just kind of end it, I guess. And I went and transitioned kind of into cars because cars watches. It's a synonymous thing with these two when it comes to collecting, enjoying, whatever. Did road stories for quite a bit, and I got contacted by you guys, or I don't remember exactly how it happened, but basically we all came into contact, and we decided that Watch and Listen was something that we should continue, and here we are. I mean, I'm now the co-host. I'm very grateful for that, and having a great time with Cameron. Funny enough, Cameron was the last guest that we had on Time. So interesting, how that worked out. But yeah, I mean, long, very, very short story, very, very long. So there you go.
There you go. That's awesome, Mike. And I think it was actually your connection through Road Stories and Matt Farah is how you got connected to us with Watch and Listen. Because Matt Farah actually, if I remember correctly, recommended, hey, you guys need to meet Mike Senderovich. And so it's kind of full circle because you go from watches to cars, and because of your connection to cars, you get back to watches. So we've enjoyed having you, and it's been, I think, a successful season 2 so far. We've had some really good feedback from it, so you're crushing it on that end. So do you remember what your first watch was?
Yeah, of course.
All right, what was it?
Not. I also remember destroying it, which was the most heartbreaking thing ever. So it was the Citizen.
Okay.
And it was an automatic Citizen, and I don't remember the model number, obviously, because it was so long ago. But you could you remember how Citizen kind of sort of had a line that looked kind of sort of like the Datejust, even with the fluted bezel?
Yeah, I do actually.
Yeah. So it was an automatic watch at a Miyota movement, and I remember getting that watch. I don't really remember how old I was, but I want to say it was definitely junior high school. I'm pretty sure it was my birthday, because every birthday after that, I was always looking at watches to kind of get something out. Usually it turned out to be video games because my brother and I had to share, which I was perfectly fine with. But watches were always a thing. So I got this Citizen, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And then I also inherited a skateboard. It was this awesome old school Santa Cruz. It wasn't the new modern kind of skateboards that are just this kind of hot dog shape. It was the one that was with fins and everything like that. I remember watching videos of Bob Burnquist doing all kinds of tricks on these things, and the skateboard was pretty much half alive. I mean, the deck was fine, but the trucks were completely stuck. So there wasn't really any turning unless I did some kind of cool maneuvers. And, I was skating up and down the street, and I remember my grandmother was watching this because I have a younger brother who's 5 years younger. And I just hit a rock or something, or, the typical kid that's trying to learn how to skateboard flies off the skateboard, and I flew off. And I went wrist first into the ground, and I completely wrecked the watch. So I was just heartbroken, and my parents were like, it's fine, don't worry about it. And then they got me another watch. I don't remember exactly what that was, because that's kind of when things started to move into a direction of there were a lot of watches. And mostly it was, really simple Timex stuff, or never had a Seiko. I was more of a Citizen guy. I like the Miyota stuff. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the story of the first watch.
I feel like people that are into watches often have a story where it's at a young age, something was perked in them where they're like, oh my gosh, I watches, I love these, you know, where, I mean, people definitely get into them later in life, but I think there is something interesting about like as a child that having an early memory of a watch and then that like not going away, you know, it's like you've still always kind of maintain this love of watches. And I've met you before, I've seen some of your collections, but for everyone that's viewing, why don't you share them what you're wearing now or one or two of the pieces that you're in your collection, your daily kind of rotation?
Well, it's funny because, you know, people say collection, but I'm not much of a collector.
Yeah.
So I'm a minimalist at heart. I don't like a lot of things, a lot of stuff. I kind of just have a few things at a time.
Yeah.
And my trusty watch is 15200 Rolex date. And I have an IWC Mark 16, which is actually currently being serviced, thank God, because it was in such desperate, you know, it was just so desperately in need of a service. So I don't have that with me right now. I do have a Swatch System 51 upstairs. I've got a couple of pocket watches and things like that I have. One watch that was actually given to me by my great grandfather, and the watch was with him for like close to 60 or 70 years. We talked about it on the episode when we were talking about our collections. So when it comes to like collections, I think I might have talked briefly about this on the episode, but I don't have the attention span to collect. Like if I have 5 or 6 different watches, I would probably stand there for, I kid you not, half an hour at least trying to decide what I should wear. So I don't really want to think about what I should put on my wrist. I kind of force myself to get into something and then stick with it. Like one of the reasons why I bought this 15200 is because it's not a date chest. And people always go, oh, like you have a date chest. No, I don't. I have a date. And I then can strike a conversation with them about why I think this thing is cooler than a date chest. You know, it's 34 millimeters as opposed to 36. And yeah, oh, well, that's really tiny. But if you actually compare the two, the differences are really, really almost unnoticeable.
Yeah.
And this thing wears a little bit thicker. There's a dog in my lap, so you might see it. So this thing wears a little bit thicker, and it has a little bit more of a presence on my wrist than a date chest does, because the date just kind of lays flat a little bit. Yeah. And I don't have the biggest wrists in the world, so to me this thing makes much more sense. So collections wise, yeah, I mean, I've got a couple of different things because I kind of like to look at them, but nothing that I really wear. I kind of stick to 2 to 3 watches. 3 is the max. I had, I think, 4 at one period of time, and I had a panic attack every morning, you know, trying to decide which one was going to go on my wrist.
You can only wear 1 at a time, you know? So at any given time, however large your collection has become, you know, all but 1 are sitting in, you know, a drawer or wherever you store your watches. And you don't need often that many. And so I think it's cool that you have like your go-to things and you've done your research. There's this, when you're saying that, that resonated so well with me. And there's a part in Parks and Recreation. I don't know if you've ever watched the show. It was like
I watched a couple
sitcoms, and Nick Offerman, he plays a character named Ron Swanson, and he walks into a Home Depot and an employee comes up to him and is like, hey, how can I help you? And he's like, I know more than you, and just keeps walking. It's like, if you've done your research and you know what you want, like it's almost like investing on the front end, so you don't have to worry and you don't have to think about it day in and day out. It's like you just put on that watch, like day in and day out, you put it on. And I remember when I first met you and I saw that date, I was like, oh man, that is a solid pick. And like, I saw it on you. I knew exactly what it was because I wear the Datejust, the slightly larger one. But for a lot of the same reasons is why I went with the Datejust, is why you went with the Date, and just kind of how it wore on my wrist. And I remember seeing yours and being like, gosh, that man knows watches. Like, and you can explain why you picked it out. And I think that's awesome, man. So that being said, you've got your collection. Is there like, you know, the term people throw around, grail watch? Is there like one watch that you're like, this, if I could have this watch, maybe I would be done buying watches?
You know, Cameron asked me the same question on the episode, and kind of caught me off guard. This question always catches me off guard. And you sent me some of these questions, I think all of these questions, before we record this. And to be quite frank, I didn't actually and actually look at the questions, because I think it's a lot more fun to just kind of have a natural conversation. But I did see that question, and I was thinking about this, and I think the watch, like if I were to have one watch, I think the Patek 50, and I know that I'm not pronouncing Patek. This is the way I pronounce Patek, people. So if you don't like it, I'm sorry.
Go for it. I'm fine with that.
Patek. I've heard Patek from people that work at Patek, and I've also heard Patek from people that don't work at Patek. So anyway, I think the 5070P, and the reason I like the P is there's just something about platinum that makes a watch look unbelievably expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't really do it for me. Like, I don't really care about the monetary value of the collection. I care more about why that watch is what it is. But for some reason, certain watches are just better in precious metals. So for example, one of my favorite watches of all time is just your standard Daytona. But my favorite Daytona is the chocolate Daytona, because I think the Ever Rose Gold is just perfect. And the 5070P, even though it looks very, very close to just the standard white gold model, just looks different.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's more shiny. It doesn't even look more shiny. I like the, platinum and gold pretty much look the same, with the exception of like maybe a couple of hues of tint or something like that. But I don't know. Yeah, 57P with that Lamania movement, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe Lamania, may not. But it's just a beautifully decorated movement. The movement itself is housed in that watch, like perfect symmetry and dimension. It doesn't look like the movement is too big or too small. And you flip the damn thing over, and it's like, good God, it's like, who penned this thing? This is literally perfect in every single dimension. And I'm all about symmetry.
Okay.
I love when things are very symmetrical, and just the dial layout. It's just like, there's nothing more than you need. Yeah, long-winded, but I guess again, you're a long answer to a very short question.
No, I love hearing that, man, and I love that. That's one of the things I think you do so well, Mike, is you can explain exactly why you like what you like. So I admire that. I think that's a phenomenal pick of a watch. And as far as a Grail watch list goes, that's right up there, man. That's awesome. So how have the past couple of weeks been for you?
This is the question of the century, right?
Yeah, it is.
They haven't really been that bad. I'm kind of an introvert, actually. Okay. So for me, it's really not that big of a deal not to be kind of talking to people.
Mm-hmm.
I do need to be outside, though, which is kind of difficult. I mean, that's really kind of the most difficult thing for me is I need the sun. I'm a big sun person, and one of the reasons why I refuse to leave Southern California is because we get a lot of sun. And in the beginning of March, we had a week and a half of rain, and I was so miserable. I was so unhappy. Then the sun came out, and I'm like back to my normal self and doing all right, I guess.
I like hearing that. And that's, I think, healthy perspective, kind of taking it the one day at a time, being like, hey, we're making the best of it in spite of, like you said, it's kind of a once in a lifetime situation. So is there anything you've said, hey, I'm going to try and learn, or over the next month, I want to be able to accomplish?
What I really am focusing on is kind of learning more about Wirecast, which is a program that we use, and figuring out the best ways to broadcast newer episodes. So hopefully you guys have noticed that, maybe you haven't, but the audio for the podcast is a little bit different than the audio was before, because I've been able to kind of implement some of my knowledge in audio and use some compression techniques and some EQing and some noise isolation here and there. So I'm kind of starting to learn more video. There is kind of a learning curve. There's a learning curve with audio as well, but you're kind of balancing two different things at once, and just kind of utilizing Wirecast to all of its potential. The system's very good, but like I said, it does have a little bit of a learning curve for me because of so many different things that are kind of, they're really kind of the opposite of what we used to do in audio, which is strange, but what are you going to do? And then really it's just to kind of get back into having a good understanding of what's going on in the watch world right now, because On Time was 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And 5 years ago, I had different tastes. I had different preferences. Like 5 years ago, I was working on building a collection and having 5, 6, 10 watches. So it's funny how 5 years can change you and change like just your perspective on things in general. If I'm going to do something like when we had the talks about the podcast, I told you guys like I'd love for us to take this one step, like above where Watch and Listen was, because Watch and Listen was already such an amazing product. Like it was so great. It was the only watch podcast that I'd listened to. Number one, like Matt Farah is Matt Farah. He's like this giant personality. And Cameron is the walking encyclopedia that I always really want to listen to, because not only is he extremely knowledgeable about watches, but he's been in like this whole, like this microcosm of what the Swiss watchmaking industry is. So he understands it. He understands it from the inside out. So picking his brain and going through all these things, just to me, it's like it's reinvigorating me and giving me this opportunity to get back into loving these watches more and more. So it's crazy what we're going through, but we are, as the human race, very, very resilient. We've gone through some incredibly difficult things, and we'll get through this as well. And hopefully we can provide you guys with the best watch content that is available on the interwebs. And that's really what we're working for right now.
Dude, that's awesome, Mike. Well, hey, I'm going to definitely, I'm going to hold you to it. Better at Wirecast and back with your thumb on the pulse of the watch industry. Well, awesome, man. Thank you so much for your time. Hey, guys, that's Mike Senderovich. Go check out his stuff. You can go look at his old episodes of On Time. You can check out Road Stories. And, of course, currently Watch and Listen podcast is him and Cameron Weiss. So until we see you again, guys, take it easy, man.
Cheers.